Hey there guys, girls and everyone in between, and welcome back to Nimby Rails, and today we will talk again. On Saturday, so for me, tomorrow, because when this video comes out it's Friday, Nimby Rails will have its 4th anniversary, and I might play Nimby all day long for that. Today we are in part 2 of this small showcase of my old saves, so if you haven't seen the first video, go and check it out. Let's continue where we left off. We got a first view into the game version 1.8 in late April of 2023 when the beta version launched. And for everyone who watches my Nimby Rails series, this will look very familiar, because I spent the 1.8 beta in the Baltics. Back then I also started in Tallinn and went south. I focused a little bit more on the high-speed rail Baltica, basically the same like it is today. Riga station also looked a little bit different back then because I went in for the overkill to give it way more platforms than it actually needed. In the end I also created the tunnel to Helsinki main station and worked a little bit into the Finnish land, but not too much. The save wouldn't last long and I never reached Kaunas and Vilnius. In July of 2023, so during the summer, we got launched into the 1.9 beta version. At the start of 1.9 I went to Bremen once again of course, and I only have a single screenshot of one of my tests to see if I can actually put a few trains into the same yard. I cheated a little bit with the switches and the depot, but besides that, I also had one or I think even 2 or 3 tracks where I actually stacked multiple trains into the same yard and it worked better than I expected. After that I went to Halberstadt, which is in eastern Germany, not too far east. During that time I was building a lot but never setting up the lines. So in the first screenshot you can see it's already a huge network. I had the high-speed line from Rathenow all the way to the entry of Hanover. In the south I had the high-speed line from Hanover to Göttingen and even past Göttingen, and I also had big cities like Braunschweig, Magdeburg already set up. When we go further, the network expanded, now also going through cities like Osnabrück, Rheine, Paderborn, Bielefeld, so all cities you might know. The further the save went, the more I worked in my home region, so Bremen, Bremerhaven, Emden, Leer, all those regions between Bremen and the Netherlands, and I also started in Rügen, which is northeast Germany, and I worked on the ICE line that goes from Rügen to Berlin. The last screenshot of the save that I actually had before I deleted it because I didn't like the ways I was building it, shows that I was approaching Dortmund. I was already in Groningen. In the south, not a lot changed, I was still around Göttingen. But in the east, quite a lot changed. I had the tracks ready from Rügen to Berlin. All in all, I spent a lot of time building, but not so much scheduling and setting up lines. One small thing you might not see, and I also don't have a screenshot of it, is I had the Brockenbahn, which is quite a famous train in northern Germany, and everyone who went to the Harz or is a regular visitor to the Harz knows that train. 1.10 beta arrived in October of 2023, with mostly map-related updates at first. The original game got visually refreshed a little bit, and finally bridges were actually bridges and you didn't have to tunnel under them. Of course only if the data allowed it. In that time I went back to Portugal. Maybe I really just hate the new things, because even I realize that it's basically a circle and I swap places over and over again, but stay inside the circle. Lisboa, quite simple. I set up the part from the city following the river towards the coast, and I think I did a very good job with that line. It worked properly, and then I set up the Lisboa metro system, the Lisboa tram system, and I even had a try at creating the most Portuguese looking tram that I ever had in the save. I really like the color scheme of this one. And I even expanded the networks with ferries over the river to connect different places along the bay to remove the traffic from the big bridge. The one single big bridge. The more time I spent in the save, the more I also thought about how I just did it again. So I decided to go for a different approach with the high-speed line towards Madrid. Constructing it was relatively interesting, and I also worked quite a lot on the regional lines, supporting the high-speed track, and in the end I made it all the way to Madrid and even started work on Madrid with the line to Toledo. But all the good things come to an end, and in the late time of the 1.10 I changed to Hameln. Hameln, quite a beautiful place, and I decided why not detail it one-to-one. I tried to detail all the stations and work on the tracks with all the catenaries and overhead wiring, and it was so much work, but I had so much fun in the region. And I think I did set up 2 or 3 lines which were fully detailed, the entire tracks, but this wasn't very feasible, and over time I started to hate this network and I just deleted it. Also in 1.10 we got a new mod, by now famous, the global canvas mod. Visually everything changed with it. I didn't use it in the beginning, but later I would eventually fall in love with it. 1.11 beta arrived 10 days before the 3rd anniversary in 2024. The game saw a good amount of performance updates which were needed back then. I didn't play too much back then and only have 2 screenshots of my München save I did. Yeah. The holy cycle of locations. I worked on the southern part, so from München main station all the way down into the Alps, all the way to Rosenheim. Beta version 1.12 changed the passenger behavior in late April of 2024. The station coverage area now wasn't a fight between the stations anymore, but a unified mess, which we learned to love. At the same time, I started to use the global canvas mod and I started to work on Köln. Of course, we have the famous rail yard, now with global canvas, and I also had quite a lot of fun creating the lines from Brussels to Frankfurt and in the Köln area with the regional train lines. And I started to set up the S-Bahn network, and I had a lot of fun watching the trains sitting parallel in Frankfurt main station, like these 2 ICE trains are doing. Stuttgart Flughafen, so Stuttgart Airport, with the Stuttgart 21 upgrades. And then a look at the entire thing, it got bigger and bigger. I expanded all the way to Dortmund with the regional trains, S-Bahn trains, and I had a lot of fun building it. In the end, the network went from southern Germany all the way to the North Sea, from München all the way to Brussels, and then I deleted it and went back to Bremen. It's the holy circle, and you can see the network around Bremen, it expanded very rapidly. Back in the time before the 1.14 update, it was a little bit faster setting everything up. With the 1.13 beta version, passengers learned to walk in June of 2024, at least walk between stations that were close together. This, in my eyes, was an accidental update for the bus networks of the game that aren't even in the base game. I went on a huge save. I don't have too many screenshots of it, reaching all the way from Copenhagen down to Switzerland, southern Germany, Austria, and going all the way to Groningen and Berlin. In the end, this was one of my biggest saves. I upgraded it to have the connections to Paris, and I spent way too much time building in Frankfurt before I threw everything away and started a bus save in Bad Dölz in southern Bavaria, south of München. Also that network growing very rapidly, and I worked with mostly buses. Later down the line, I also added the trains to München main station, and then I thought, why not build a bus network with a more detailed look. This is Saarbrücken in Western Germany, and you can see that this is the depot I created for the buses. It's a bit too detailed. Here one picture of the detail at the train tracks with catenaries, overhead wires, trees, grass, and everything that's needed to make it look beautiful. A bus station where the bus is stopping and passengers are waiting for it to finally board and get to their destinations. And here one of the bridges I created. Everything was way too detailed. And with that, we are already at the end of today's video. Not fully at the end, but close to the end. I would personally say that Nimby Rails has a very huge potential if you love the feeling of playing around in the sand. You can build networks, you can create artworks, you can do way too much to fit it into the ending sentence of this video. I personally expect that we will see 1.16 maybe in April. I always hope to have new game versions a little bit later, because that means that there's more new content to it. But already the game is at a very good state. With 1.14 and 1.15 it got a bit more complicated, especially for new people, which is a little bit sad, but that is where the game is heading currently, to get more complicated, but also to give the players way more possibilities. I hope you enjoyed this look into the past, because I certainly did. And I hope that you saw a few of the screenshots and thought that you could do something similar, or that they inspired you. I hope to see you guys soon in my normal series of Nimby Rails, where we are currently in Poland, where I'll already finish the entire Baltics, and see you guys very soon. Bye bye.